What's up, guys? T5 Destroyer here, and something is about to be done to one of my favorite games. I say I hate it a lot, but I actually love it a lot. Rainbow Six Siege. So now they're doing a new update for Rainbow Six Siege. So before Rainbow Six Siege, the weapons recoil was completely random. Now, yes, this gave a sense of realism to the weapons, because every single time you spray a weapon in real life, the recoil is probably not going to be the same. It made the weapons a little harder to control because it was so different each time. You couldn't really get something down. It wasn't like Counter-Strike where you can literally learn the exact spray pattern for certain weapons and be a complete god with those weapons. That is not how Rainbow Six Siege was, but now I feel like it's not going to be like Counter-Strike, but I just feel like the way you learn weapons will be a little more like Counter-Strike, just because they have a set recoil pattern. Now, there's goods and there's bads to things like this. The good thing is it definitely adds longevity to the game. Gives you even more stuff to learn. Now we're talking a whole, you have to learn every single operator's, recoil pattern for all the guns in order to be, a god at the game, So it will give the game more longevity, but with it giving something else to learn, it just may stray people away from, getting into Rainbow Six Siege, and I hate that. Rainbow Six Siege is an awesome game, and I feel like if you haven't played it and you love first-person shooters, if you like Battlefield, it's kind of like Battlefield on a smaller scale without the vehicles. It's very chaotic. It's very chaotic. It's very arcadey at some points, but it is also very tactical. It's very fun. It has a lot of aspects to it that it's a lot to get into right now. But I really think a lot of people, especially if you like shooters, should get into Rainbow Six Siege, okay? But this is going to stray people away from it. Some people that, already are thinking like, wow, there's so much for me to learn, it's going to be a lot on them. You have to learn what each one of the gadgets do, how to use each one of the gadgets, learning which guns you like the most with certain operators, learning how to use certain, speed of operators. Use a 3-speed operator different than you use a 2 or a 1-speed operator, and use a 3 armor operator different than you use a 2 armor or 1 armor operator. You have to really learn the ins and outs of Rainbow Six Siege to really be good at it. And now that this is being added into the game, I can see that being a lot harder for newer players. But for me though, I love this idea. This idea is awesome. To think that there's going to be even more for me to learn on this game. It's going to be a lot of fun. Another thing that I really like about this is the game's going to get switched up. One thing Rainbow Six never really gets super stale, but it does kind of have the same experience, especially when you're maining certain operators and you're using the same ones. But now it's going to be a lot different. The gunplay is going to feel kind of different because there's new recoil patterns that you have to learn. Another thing I like is sometimes the guns feel kind of similar. Like I actually watched Matemio's video about this update, and he was talking about the R4C and the F2. Okay, the F2 and the R4C, they're not that different. He is correct, they're not that different. They're actually very similar guns. They both are high fire rate, pretty high recoil weapons, and they feel kind of similar. But if they both have brand new recoil patterns that you have to learn, it's going to make things a lot harder because they don't feel the same anymore. One has this recoil pattern and one has this another recoil pattern. So the next thing, I have a lot of things that I like and dislike about this. The next thing is, now there's something else to learn, yes, but this will make some operators easier to use than other operators. See, if Twitch's F2 and Ash's R4C are fairly similar, right? Right now, if you add those patterns to it, one pattern will be more simple and more simple or easier to control than the other, and this will, you know, also shape which operators are the best to use for beginners. You know, normally it's people like Rook, or Ash, because they're fairly easy to use. They have fairly simple gadgets. But now, Ash might not be the easiest to use, because if you're going with the most viable setup, which is probably the R4C in a lot of people's eyes, if the R4C's recoil is super hard to control, a new player probably won't do very well with that weapon. Now, granted, the G36C is not a high recoil weapon, so that is a very good alternative. So I'm guessing the G36 will not be a hard gun to control. We'll have a very simple pattern. But if you're going with the most viable option, that is the most viable option in most people's eyes, the R4C is where it's at. And if it has a super hard recoil pattern to control, you're gonna have some problems with it, especially as a new player. So that's all for today, guys. Peace out. Have a nice day. I don't really know what to say. It's just a rainbow video. Siege video.